It's the end of a really nice, beautiful day, and I thought, let's just try something different. Film outside, so that's what I'm doing. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Basically, this is me documenting my experience as I design my own wardrobe. This month, I'll be focusing on creating a tank and also creating matching underwear. And if you're not new here, well, then thanks for coming back. So I'm just gonna jump into what happened this week. I had to actually make notes because I can't quite remember everything that happened this week, but basically, in a nutshell, I did a lot of experimentation. First, I started with creating 2 swatches, one with a rib stitch and one with just regular knitting pattern. And basically, I used that to create a gauge. I want to calculate how many stitches are going to be in the final project, and then I can use that to calculate the final figure. So I did that, I blocked it, and then I just played a lot with it. To see how stretchy it could get, how resilient it was. And I also got out my grid paper, and actually first I did it in reverse. So I took my pattern inspiration, which I traced the pattern, right? And then I went to go put it on my dress form. Guess what? It didn't fit because the paper's not knit. It's not knitwear, it's not stretchy. And so I thought, oh, well, this kind of puts a damper on my little hypothesis, my little theory that I had. But I did go ahead and take the graph paper and I draped it over the dress form as I would normally do, and I was able to shape out the darts. And by that time, I had experimented so much and I was playing, and I thought, well, if I stretch out the fabric and calculate the percentage of stretch, then I can shape down the pattern. But that just seemed like a lot of work. And since I'm on a timeline, I don't really have the luxury of playing around so much. Maybe eventually I can blend these 2 worlds of knitting and sewing techniques. But right now I just don't have the time. But what I do have, is knitting software. So why don't I just stop stressing myself out and use the software? So that's what I did. So I have the Chanel Design Studio, and I got into it. I played around with it this weekend, and at first I felt overwhelmed. I got the manual. What am I doing? I sent a message to Susan, but then she answered a couple of my questions, and after that I just got in the program, clicked around, started looking, and it's quite intuitive, and I'm still learning. I'm not an expert, obviously, but pretty quickly, it took me, I'd say maybe I spent like 6 to 10 hours, not in one day, but that's about how much time I spent just playing around with the program and trying to figure it out. And I was able to create a tank and underwear, and it's not exactly like the ones that I like because I'm allowing myself some creativity, but it's pretty similar. And then I decided to add a band to it, or ribbing to it. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. That's something I learned in the program, is that in order to add the band or the gauge for the band, you have to do it separately. So I would think, or in my mind, I would think there'd be an area for the gauge for the band and then a gauge for your regular stitch. But what you do actually, my understanding, is first you go in with the band and you enter in the gauge, and then once you've brought the image up and print out the instructions, then after that you go in and you put in the gauge for the main piece, and then you pull up the image again, or I'm not even sure if you have to pull up the image again, but you can go ahead and get the shaping instructions for that. So that's one thing to keep in mind, because I was like, okay, so I see gauge, but is there a gauge for banding, or is there... That's what happens when you film outside, right? So I was asking myself, is there a gauge area for banding and for the main piece? And no, it's the same area, and you enter it once for the band, because I'm using ribbing on mine. You don't have to use ribbing. And then for the main part that's not ribbing, I went ahead and entered the gauge for that as well, because it's different. It's not the same. So now that I have my patterns ready, save myself a lot of stress, I'm gonna get to work knitting. So yeah, that's what I've done this week. Just lots of experimentation, getting used to the software, and yeah, building up my confidence. I just want to say something, and this is not related to the knitting, but I mentioned affirmations before, and I write different notes to remind myself of what I'm doing as I'm doing this process. And my husband's great. He's my support. He's my number one cheerleader, but he started laughing at me. And, I just wanted to say to anyone out there who's feeling insecure or feeling nervous about starting something new, or feeling nervous about being vulnerable or expressing these positive thoughts or positive goals that you have, don't let anybody make you feel bad. Even the people that you love, they just might not understand what you're doing, but so what? If it makes you feel good, do it. If it helps you reach your goal and keep focused, do it. I know that's what I'm going to do. And I told him I was going to mention this because I feel like that's really important. So many people, great. If you feel good about yourself, if you don't need this, don't use it. But for me, it's been great. It's helped me to really focus in on what I'm doing. And so I just want to say that to you. If you're feeling affirmations or positivity or writing out your goals really helps you, then do that, and just be prepared. People might laugh at you, but that's okay. So anyway, thanks for joining in, and I will see you guys next week.